Hello, everybody. Chief Strong here. We'll get started in another 30 seconds or so. Might give everybody an opportunity to log on who might still be trying. All right, everybody. Well, it's 6 o'clock, so we won't keep anybody waiting. So we're having a police community meeting virtually, as you can see. Hopefully we'll get started with some face-to-face community meetings and the next time. We're kind of doing these about quarterly, so that's my intent, do another one in a few months. We'll obviously keep everyone updated on social media, etc. So without any further ado, I've prepared a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to share my screen and kind of go through that now. There'll be an opportunity at the end for questions if any of you live participants have questions. Looks like we have 9 or 10 now. So if you have any questions you want to add at the end, by all means. And some people added in some questions via email, etc. So let me share my screen for the PowerPoint. Okay, so we'll get started here then. Sorry, some brief technical difficulties. So let's start out with a COVID-19 update. You know, we've all been dealing with this across the world, certainly here in Wayne as well, for the past year. I don't want to say we're near the end, but there's definitely, light at the end of the tunnel here. Currently there's 3 vaccines available here in the United States, and we'll talk about them in depth now in a bit here. But in the meantime, I would just suggest, still, I know it's been a long year, but still just stick with the safety precautions we're all well aware of, as you can see in these pictures. Wear a mask, social distance, wash your hands. I know it's sick of it. I'm sick of it as well. I want to go back to my normal activities, but we're just not quite there yet. So I just implore everyone to take care of your neighbors, take care of your elderly relatives by, taking care of these precautions. A good friend of mine who's my age, he got COVID, and he has that long haul COVID, and it's basically ruined his life. I mean, he was a healthy young man, just like me. Well, maybe I'm not such a young man anymore, but he was a healthy man, and it's pretty much ruined his life from getting COVID. So we just don't know how it's going to affect us. I know many people, they bounce back and they're healthy, but not everyone. Police department operations, it's certainly put a hamper on our operations. We've had to adjust our training. We've had to maybe spread out training where we might be able to do a department-wide training. We've had to spread it out over 3-4 days so we can socially distance, have smaller crowds. Obviously, we've had to change the way we interact with citizens. That being said, we still need to do police work. We can't just not do police work. If somebody needs help, we're going to help them regardless of COVID-19. But we've certainly taken a lot of steps to protect our officers, gotten extra cleaning equipment. We certainly have plenty of masks for officers now. It was a little touch and go toward the beginning of the pandemic, but we're doing quite well on PPE now. So vaccinations. Like I said, there's 3 vaccines available now. There's the Johnson & Johnson, there's the Pfizer, and then Moderna. They're all safe and effective. I've been vaccinated with both doses. Many of my officers have been. On a personal note, my wife's a teacher. She's been vaccinated. We both experienced minor side effects, but we were largely fine. As far as the vaccination efforts here in Wayne, as I'm sure many of you know, we did a vaccine event at Hype Recreation. last week for senior citizens here in Wayne. We vaccinated over 400 senior citizens here in Wayne. There's a few bumps we need to get through for the next event, but largely we did pretty well. We vaccinated over 400 senior citizens, so we were very happy with that. So I know that many people who were interested in getting vaccinated last week than were actually vaccinated. So what we're doing now is we're creating an interest list for senior citizens who are residents of Wayne who would like to be vaccinated. And again, this is just an interest list should we get some more information about future vaccine opportunities. We may not. The county may move to just simply regional distribution of vaccines, but we very well may. So this is just a way of getting an idea of the senior citizens here in Wayne who would like to be vaccinated. I know the state later this month is going to expand the current eligibility list for vaccines, but right now, when I say senior citizens in Wayne, I mean 65 and older. That's the interest list we're taking. So you can get on that interest list by just typing COVID@cityofwayne.com or calling, texting the number listed there, 313-923-7531. Leave your name, phone number. Phone number is the most important part. That was one of the bumps we ran into with registering folks for the previous event. Sometimes I think people were real excited about the vaccine and maybe they left the wrong phone number. So that was a roadblock we dealt with. So really take the time to read your phone number nice and carefully on the voicemail or the email typing it out. So name, phone number, address. Again, you must be a City of Wayne resident. Email address if you have one, and your age, again, 65 years or older. And please note if you're homebound. There is a program, the details are still pretty not firm quite yet, but at some point there'll be a program to come out and vaccinate homebound seniors. So if you're homebound, please indicate as such on that voicemail or email, or if you're having a friend or relative do it for you. So let's see here. So personnel updates. We're doing quite well. I'm very pleased with the support that City Council, Mayor Racy, the rest of council, and the city manager has given us. We're up to 26 officers now. When I started in 1999, we had, I believe, 48 officers. At one point, we were down to 19 officers. So we're doing quite well, 26. That being said, we're not quite where we need to be. According to just basic FBI statistics, so there's 17,000 residents in Wayne. You want to have 2 officers per 1,000 residents. So, we should be at 34, but hey, I'll take 27 over 19. So we're doing quite well. So we have 4 officers in training right now. And that's a bit of a logistical problem, but we're doing the best we can. We're just lucky that we have these officers in training. They're all doing well. If there's no bumps in the road as far as training, they would be all done with their training maybe in May or June. So want to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. We have something here at the Wayne Police Department called the Peer Support Team. So the Peer Support Team we have 3 officers, a command officer and 2 officers who are specially trained to help other officers in need. Police work is a very stressful job. We see terrible things. We see murders, we see car crashes where people die or they're injured. I'm sure many of you saw about the fundraising campaign our unions did for that young man who was paralyzed in a car crash last year. Kudos to them, to Sergeant Hughes and Detective Talmadge for organizing that. But this stuff is very hard for officers, just seeing this terrible stuff day in and day out. So the Peer Support Team is designed to so officers are trained to look for warning signs of officers who maybe aren't dealing with these incidents so well, can have informal conversations with them to talk them through these things, or if they need more formal help them get those resources. So it's really good. So that's why we have it, just to help our officers. It's used, again, after serious situations, maybe an officer's just not handling an incident well, and he or she needs to talk to somebody. So we've used it quite often. And we'll have debriefings after more serious incidents where we'll all sit down and talk, after a murder or a death, particularly a child death, things like that, so we can really talk things out. So the Peer Support Team is part of our larger officer wellness initiative. Part of our larger officer wellness initiative includes our resident therapy dog, Zeke. I thought I might get a kick out of seeing some pictures there of Zeke interacting with our officers. That's Officer Preeb there in the left, Officer Bolton there in the middle, and PSA Hughes on the end. So police service aides or PSAs, they answer our non-emergency calls and just kind of assist around the station as needed. Ms. Hughes there is currently working on her master's degree at Wayne State University to become a social worker. So this, this experience at the police department has been a big help to her, and we love having her around. So I brought up this Nixle thing here because of the recent snow emergency. Nixle is a good way to get alerts from your local community about things like snow emergencies, or maybe if we've got a road closed due to a traffic crash, or if we're on the lookout for a missing person, or maybe there's a serious crime just occurred. So you can sign up by the text message or going to the website there. I'll also tell you about severe weather as well. So, you get some good information on there, missing persons, road closures, things like that. So next few slides are just some statistics about what's been going on in Wayne the past year or so. So the 2020 calls for service. So basically that means anytime an officer is called to do anything, to take a report, to respond to a burglary, just anything an officer does that is sent to by dispatch. And just about these numbers, let's say 3 officers are sent to a call for service. That's just one call for service. So if 3 officers are one, it's just one. So in 2020, officers were dispatched to almost 16,000 calls for service. And I would add that the COVID-19 actually decreased our calls for service. That is a low number overall. Most people were staying home and minding their own business, at least for the first few months of COVID-19. I think this year we're going to see some other things, like we're going to see maybe some mental health effects, things like that. But obviously that's yet to be seen. So here's some type of incidents that we've gone on so far this year in 2021. Just I thought people might want to get an idea of the various things that we get called on: assault and battery, child abuse. So alarm intrusion, that means like a burglar alarm, like at a business or a home. Assist other department, maybe another department's, having trouble with someone, particularly in the, the bordering areas, we're going to assist them just like they would assist us. Disorderly person, drug crimes, family trouble, hopefully in situations like that, we can mediate things. Obviously, unless there's an assault, then we would make an arrest. Some other things, larceny, that's just a fancy way of saying theft, noise complaint, somebody complaining. Most of those, people complain about fireworks, loud music, that type of thing. Suspicious person. Yeah, unauthorized driving away of a vehicle, that's a fancy way of saying that somebody stole a car. So recent cases, I spoke to the head of our detective bureau before this meeting, and he asked that I mention, I believe we had some stuff on Facebook about it as well, phone scams. These are still prevalent. Just, use some common sense. Somebody's not going to call you and ask you to, no legitimate party is going to ask you to call them and provide bank account information, or to send you gift cards, or to go get Visa gift cards from 7-Eleven. The IRS certainly is not going to accept payment in gift cards or Visa cards from the 7-Eleven. That being said, it's easy to fall prey to these things. So just, don't do it. If you think it might be a scam, it probably is. Lieutenant Carter also asked me to mention, and I believe he put something on Facebook, with kids being online more. I know Wayne Westland schools went back to a hybrid model, but kids still are online school 2 or 3 days a week. Just spend some extra time monitoring their activity. I know some adults have to go to work, but just take some extra time to monitor their activity, look at their browser history, etc. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and and hopefully be able to interact with anybody. If anyone would like to ask me a question, you can raise your hand in the Zoom app. I'd be happy to answer it. While people are thinking about if they have a question they would like to ask, I'll address a question that was asked via email. So the question asked via email was about training, specifically training related to racial sensitivity, that type of thing. So obviously in 2020, and unfortunately before that, we had some pretty disturbing incidents, i.e. George Floyd in 2020. So throughout my career here at the police department, we have always trained on things like that, both formally and informally. So by formally, I mean actually sending officers to training, whether it's virtual or in person, about how to interact with all segments of the community, how to be aware of our own biases, particularly implicit biases. By implicit biases, I mean biases that we might not necessarily be aware of. Communicate, I would say it all boils down to communication. So in 2020, due to COVID-19, a lot of that training unfortunately had to be virtually, but we still did keep officers trained on that. Lieutenant Carter, who was our training coordinator, he and I were discussing this matter earlier this week. We are going to do a big push to do some more in-person training later this year, hopefully when we can have a little more of the in-person training, as long as it's safe, of course, about implicit bias. I believe we're going to start with that. We have a new training company who I think can help us with that. The state does provide us funds for the training, so very little taxpayer dollars go toward that. And the other part of the question about training was like, how do officers receive that? I would say officers receive it quite well. I've been in this business for over 20 years, and there's a newer generation of officers, and I don't see officers complain about training no matter what it is. Officers realize the current social climate they're in, and we need to expand our horizons a little bit and learn about things. There's not much to complain about there. If you're not into that training, then this probably isn't the right profession for you. So that was literally the only email questions I had. So any questions from the audience here? Obviously, we've got quite a few people in the audience now. We've got 16. Any questions? Nobody? Oh, hang on. I think I've got a typed out one. Great question. So Mr. Shelton, great friend of the police department. He takes our pictures now and then for the composite pictures on the wall. But anyway, Mr. Shelton asked about, are we going to be able to patrol the neighborhoods more than now that we have a few more officers? So that's a great question. I talked about, 26 is a great start. It's not really quite where we need to be, but I'll certainly take 26 over 19. Yeah, so let me just talk a little bit about how we're going to distribute the staffing once we have everybody trained. Right now, we don't, frankly, we have our hands full a little bit training 4 officers. We haven't trained 4 officers at a time, and probably going on 10 years. So once we have all 4 officers trained, my number one priority is to fully staff our road patrol. Our road patrol hasn't been fully staffed in years and years. So frankly, if you're not seeing officers patrolling the neighborhood like you want, that's probably why. So that is my number one priority, fully staff the shifts. So that's going to allow the command officer to do his job in the station, keep an eye on prisoners, interact with citizens in the lobby when needed. And it's going to allow the officers to go out there and, handle calls for service, do some of that proactive activity like you talked about, like patrol neighborhoods and things like that, do additional traffic enforcement perhaps. But that being said, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can always email us at police@cityofwayne.com. If you just maybe just have some ongoing problem in your neighborhood and you like a few extra patrols, we are always happy to do that. If you write police@cityofwayne.com, it goes right to my desk, as well as the on-duty command officer. So that's a great way to reach out to it. As far as staffing, we are actually budgeted for a 27th officer now. We're actively recruiting for that. Lieutenant Carter, who's also a recruiting coordinator, he's going to be visiting a couple different police academies next week to try and recruit a really good candidate for that position. Now that we're at 26, that 27th, maybe we can, again, spend a little extra time to, recruit a very qualified candidate. When we have that 27th officer, that 27th officer, he will be a community officer. Well, he'll attend, every block party. He'll help with neighborhood watch, any community event you're going to see him or her at, as well as anything else we might need for the community. Perhaps he might be able to do some of those extra patrols that Mr. Shelton mentioned. So, see, I saw a hand raised there. Ray, how are you, sir?
Can you hear me?
I can, Ray. It's good to hear you.
I missed you. I just want to say, this is make a comment is that you guys, I want to say thank you for your frontier work that you do out in Wayne out there.
Thanks,
And
Ray.
yeah, you guys are doing a great job. So pass that on to your officers. I was really happy hearing all your good updates up there. So
Good.
yeah, and
Thanks.
then
Thanks, Ray. And I know this is near and dear to your heart, so I'm just going to mention it. So today, our officers were in all-day training on what's called mental health first aid. So it's to recognize mental health emergencies on the part of the community and substance abuse issues and how to safely deal with those and perhaps, direct those folks towards some needed services.
oh, that is really good. I'm really that is to my heart, and I'm glad you guys are doing that. And Livonia has social workers for mental health now.
Yes.
And I was at city, I was on the Zoom with Westland and brought that up to them too. Hopefully,
Yeah. So
some type of peers or something like
yeah,
social
so Ray,
workers would be great.
we're not in the position to have a full-time social worker, but I'm definitely working on a plan to get something similar, maybe more of a hybrid type model. We're not in a position to have a full-time one, but I
Okay.
recognize that that's a good idea, and I've got a few workarounds going for that.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to drop in and say hello to you. So
All right, well, it's great to hear you, Ray, and hopefully later this year we can have a regular one where I can say hello to you face to face.
Sounds good. So if you ever want me to do a presentation with my resources, just let me know.
All right, we'll do, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Like I saw another raised hand there. So Councilman Brock asked if we'll be posting this meeting so we can share it. Yes, so I'm recording the meeting, and it's going to be posted on city cable, and I'll figure out a way to get it on Facebook as well. But IT Director Martin is going to get it on city cable tomorrow morning. We are recording it. All right. Anybody else want to raise their hand and ask a question? Okay. No, it was a little awkward at first getting the hang of, at least for me anyway, sharing the PowerPoint and everything, but I hope I was able to share some good information with the public. Again, we are really excited about, getting back up to a, I don't want to say full level of staffing, but we're getting there. Officers are excited about getting into the community more. And if we can get this 27th officer and, have a full-time community officer goes to these meetings and interacts with the public, I think it's just going to be great. Since y'all attended this meeting, I'll share something new with you. So we just had I mentioned the need to recruit for new officers. So we just had a recruiting brochure made, and it's just an update on a previous one. So just I'll let everybody take a look here, and it's got our therapy dog Zeke on the back. And the reason we do these is when we go to the academies, we're really competing against other departments. There are way more departments interested in hiring people than are available. And so we really need to show them what our department has to offer. And I mean, these kids now who are applying for police departments, when I got a job back in 1999 here, I was so dang excited to get a job. I mean, I never thought to occur to me like how much you get paid or what the retirement is or whatever. But these kids now, they want to see the contract. They want to see how much you make. They compare it to other agencies. They want to know if you have this and that. So this is just a way of just in a nice, clear format, letting citizens know. Letting recruits know what we have to offer. So we've done pretty well as recruiting. We have 4 people in training. So that is really all I have, I believe. So unless anybody has any additional questions, I think we will call it a night. Nobody? All right. Well, good night, everybody. And like I said, we'll for sure have this on city cable tomorrow, and I'll do my best on figuring out how to get it on Facebook. Have a great night, everybody.